The veterinarian turned pale when he saw the newborn animal. This is not a puppy. The soft patter of tiny paws echoed in the dimly lit corridor of Dr. Ramirez's veterinary clinic, a rhythmic sound that seemed to pulse with an innocent urgency. Leo, a scrappy 9-year-old with tousled hair and wide, curious eyes, clutched a tattered backpack to his chest. His heart raced as he crept closer to the examination room, the excitement of his secret mission bubbling beneath his skin. He had always been a boy with a knack for finding the extraordinary in the mundane, and today was no different. The little creature he had found, trembling and alone, was in desperate need of help. Dr. Ramirez, known for his gentle touch and unwavering dedication to animals, was meticulously organizing supplies. He had a reputation for being calm and collected, a steady hand in the chaos of the clinic. But today, he felt the familiar weight of responsibility pressing down on him, a reminder of the countless lives he had worked to save. Little did he know, however, that this day would challenge his composed demeanor in ways he could never have imagined. As Leo pushed the door open, a faint whimper escaped from the depths of his backpack. The sound was a plea, a call for help that resonated deep within Dr. Ramirez's heart. He turned, his brow furrowing in curiosity as he caught sight of the boy's anxious face, flushed with excitement and worry. "I found something," Leo said, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with anticipation. With a swift hand, he unzipped the bag, revealing a bundle of fur that stirred feebly beneath the fabric. Dr. Ramirez leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he tried to discern what lay nestled in the boy's arms. At first glance, it appeared to be a small, scruffy puppy, its coat matted and dirty, its tiny body quaking from a mix of fear and cold. But as the creature shifted, revealing piercing blue eyes that glimmered with an intelligence far beyond its years, the veterinarian's heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary puppy. "Leo, where did you find this?" Dr. Ramirez asked, his voice steady yet laced with concern. The boy's eyes widened, a mixture of pride and anxiety swirling within them. "In the alley behind my house. I think someone left it there. It needs help, Dr. Ramirez." His passion ignited a flicker of determination within the vet, and he immediately took the cub into his hands, feeling its fragile frame tremble against his palm. As he examined the creature, the realization of its true identity washed over him like a cold wave. The soft spots on its paws, the delicate curve of its ears, and the way it instinctively sought comfort in his touch. This was not a puppy. It was a lion cub. The weight of the moment settled heavily on his shoulders, and he felt an overwhelming mix of disbelief and protectiveness surge within him. The clinic, usually a sanctuary for lost and injured animals, suddenly felt like a battleground. Whispers of the cub's discovery spread like wildfire, drawing attention from all corners of the city. Dr. Ramirez could sense the shift in energy, the looming presence of something dark and powerful circling around the innocent creature. As he cradled Astra, he had decided to name the cub after the stars, for it seemed destined for greatness. He felt an unshakable bond form between them, one that transcended the boundaries of species and circumstance. Days turned into nights as the clinic buzzed with activity. People arrived with varying intentions, some with genuine concern, others driven by the lure of owning a rare animal. Dr. Ramirez, steadfast in his mission to protect Astra, found himself navigating a labyrinth of emotions and ethical dilemmas. He often glanced at the cub, who had begun to thrive under his care, playful and curious, embodying a spirit that sparked joy even in the darkest moments. In the quiet hours, when the clinic was empty except for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights, Dr. Ramirez would sit on the floor, his back against the wall, allowing Astra to curl up beside him. The bond between them deepened with each passing day. He taught her to trust, and in return, she taught him resilience. It was in those moments of companionship that the weight of the world seemed to lift, replaced by the simple joy of connection. But as the sun set over the clinic, casting long shadows across the walls, Dr. Ramirez felt the creeping unease of impending danger. He had received anonymous threats warning him to relinquish the cub to its rightful owner. The words were laced with intimidation, a reminder that Astra's very existence was entangled with forces far beyond his understanding. Despite the growing tension, he refused to be swayed by fear. Each morning, he would wake determined to shield Astra from the world's harsh realities. He became her guardian, her protector, with an unwavering commitment that began to consume him. The more he fought to keep her safe, the more he felt the pull of his own dreams and aspirations slipping away. The clinic, once a place of solace, began to feel like a prison, confining him to a life that no longer resonated with his newfound purpose. Dr. Ramirez's heart ached with the realization that he could no longer straddle two worlds. The innocence of Astra had awakened something dormant within him, a longing to make a real difference beyond the confines of his clinic. As the threats escalated, he made a decision that felt both liberating and terrifying. He would leave his practice behind to dedicate himself fully to wildlife rescue, to protect not just Astra, but all creatures in need. The day he announced his decision to his staff was bittersweet. His colleagues, who had shared in his passion for animals, were supportive yet saddened by the loss of their leader. They had fought alongside him through countless battles, rescuing and healing the vulnerable. But they understood that this was a calling that could not be ignored. With the weight of their blessings on his shoulders and Astra by his side, he stepped into an uncertain future, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. As they ventured into the world outside the clinic, Dr. Ramirez felt an exhilarating rush of freedom. The sun shone brightly overhead, and the air was filled with the sounds of life, chirping birds, rustling leaves, and the faint whispers of hope. He looked down at Astra, who gazed back at him with unwavering trust, her presence a constant reminder of why he had chosen this path. Together, they would carve a new destiny, one that would not only change their lives forever, but might also inspire others to recognize the beauty and vulnerability of the wild. As they stepped out into the bustling streets, Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of adrenaline mingling with trepidation. The world, once familiar and comforting, now felt like an uncharted territory filled with both promise and peril. He glanced down at Astra, who was nestled securely in his arms, her golden fur warm against his chest. The city around him seemed oblivious to the precious life he cradled, a stark contrast to the urgency and significance of their mission. Dr. Ramirez had always been dedicated to the well-being of animals, but this was different. This was not just a job anymore. It was a calling. He had always believed that every creature deserved a chance at life. But now he carried the weight of responsibility for Astra, a creature so rare and extraordinary that the stakes had escalated dramatically. He couldn't shake the feeling that powerful forces were mobilizing against them, forces that saw Astra as nothing more than an asset to be exploited. As they navigated through the crowded streets, he could feel the eyes of passers-by lingering on him, curiosity and judgment mingling in their gazes. Some admired the lion cub, enchanted by her beauty, while others viewed her as a mere spectacle, a strange occurrence in their daily lives. Dr. Ramirez tightened his grip on Astra, a silent promise to protect her from the world's scrutiny. He couldn't afford to let her become just another headline, another victim of human greed. The first step in their journey was to find a safe haven. Dr. Ramirez had heard whispers of a wildlife sanctuary on the outskirts of the city, a place known for its commitment to rehabilitating and protecting exotic animals. It was here that he hoped to find allies who would share his vision for Astra's future. As they made their way through the urban landscape, he began to mentally map out the route, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Leo, the boy who had brought Astra to him, had become a constant presence in his mind. The innocence and determination of that child had touched something deep within him. Dr. Ramirez couldn't help but wonder if Leo would want to join their cause. The boy had shown such bravery, and perhaps it would be fitting for him to play a role in Astra's rescue. The thought brought a smile to his face, but it was quickly tempered by the reality of their situation. They arrived at the sanctuary as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The entrance was unassuming, a rustic wooden gate surrounded by lush greenery. As Dr. Ramirez stepped through the gate, he was greeted by the sounds of nature, birds chirping, leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, and the distant calls of animals. This place felt like a sanctuary in more ways than one. The sanctuary's director, a woman named Elena, emerged from the main building. Her hair was streaked with gray, but her eyes sparkled with youthful energy and conviction. "Dr. Ramirez, it's good to see you," she greeted, her voice warm and welcoming. "I heard about the lion cub. You must be exhausted." Dr. Ramirez nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude at the sight of someone who understood the weight he carried. "Elena, this is Astra. I need your help. She's in danger, and I can't do this alone." Elena's expression shifted as she approached, kneeling down to get a better look at the cub. Astra, sensing the kindness in the woman, leaned forward, curiosity igniting her spirit. "She's beautiful," Elena remarked, her voice softening. "You've made a brave choice, bringing her here. We'll keep her safe." Dr. Ramirez felt a wave of relief wash over him. Here, at least, he had found a kindred spirit, someone who would understand the urgency of the situation. They discussed the logistics of caring for Astra, the steps they would take to ensure her safety, while also considering her rehabilitation into the wild. The conversation flowed easily, their shared passion creating an immediate bond. But as they talked, Dr. Ramirez couldn't shake the feeling that time was not on their side. He recounted the threats he had received, the sense that someone was orchestrating a hunt for Astra. Elena listened intently, her expression serious. "We'll need to be strategic," she said, her tone contemplative. "If they want her, they'll come looking. We have to be ready." The sanctuary was equipped with a network of hidden enclosures and protective measures. But Dr. Ramirez knew that it would take more than physical barriers to keep Astra safe. As night fell, he found himself unable to sleep, restless thoughts swirling in his mind like leaves caught in a tempest. He wandered outside, the cool night air refreshing against his skin. The stars twinkled above, and he was reminded of the name he had given the cub, Astra, a name that echoed the celestial magic he hoped she would one day embody. In the stillness of the night, he heard soft rustling nearby. Curiosity piqued, he followed the sound, leading him to a small clearing where other animals were housed. He noticed a few volunteers tending to the animals, their laughter and camaraderie filling the air. It was a stark contrast to the weight resting heavily on his shoulders. He felt a sense of hope ignite within him, rekindled by the joy of shared purpose. As he moved closer, he spotted Leo, the boy who had brought Astra to him, standing by a fence, eyes wide with wonder as he watched a group of playful otters. Dr. Ramirez's heart swelled at the sight. Leo had come here, despite the late hour, drawn by an irresistible pull to the sanctuary. He approached the boy, kneeling down beside him. "Hey, Leo, what are you doing here?" Leo turned to him, excitement lighting up his face. "I wanted to see Astra. I told my mom I had to come back. I can't believe you brought her here." His enthusiasm was infectious, and Dr. Ramirez felt the weight of the world ease just a little. "I'm glad you're here," Dr. Ramirez replied, his voice steady. "She needs all the love and support she can get. But I have to warn you, things are going to get complicated. There are people out there who want to take her away." Leo's expression shifted from joy to concern. "I won't let them. Astra is my friend. We'll protect her together." His determination mirrored the fierce spirit of the lion cub they were fighting for. Dr. Ramirez chuckled softly, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're right, Leo. Together, we can make a difference. Will you help me?" The boy nodded, his eyes shining with resolve. "What do we need to do?" "First, we need to keep her safe and hidden for now," Dr. Ramirez explained. "We'll set up a secure area just for her, away from prying eyes. And we must be vigilant." As they spoke, a plan began to take shape, a shared vision of how to protect Astra from the encroaching darkness. They would become a team, united by a common goal. The bond between them deepened, and in that moment, Dr. Ramirez felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Perhaps they could create a sanctuary not just for Astra, but for the values of compassion and justice they both believed in. The following day marked the beginning of their mission. With Elena's guidance, They worked tirelessly to create a safe space for Astra, a hidden enclosure surrounded by dense foliage and natural barriers. As they dug and built, Leo's laughter echoed through the sanctuary, a reminder that even amidst adversity, joy could still flourish. Days turned into weeks, and as Astra grew stronger, so did the bond between her and her new family. Dr. Ramirez found himself enchanted by the cub's playful spirit, her antics bringing laughter and light to the sanctuary. But he was ever aware of the lurking danger, the shadow of those who sought to claim her. Despite the joy of their newfound life, the threats continued. Dr. Ramirez received more warnings, more menacing messages that made it clear they were being watched. Each day he felt the tension increase, like a bowstring pulled taut, ready to snap at any moment. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Then one fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold, Dr. Ramirez received news that made his heart race. A vehicle had been spotted lurking near the sanctuary, suspicious figures moving in and out of the trees. It was a direct threat, a chilling reminder that they were not as safe as they had hoped. "Leo, we need to be ready," Dr. Ramirez said, a sense of urgency punctuating his words. "They're coming for Astra. We have to protect her at all costs." Leo's eyes widened, the gravity of the situation sinking in. "What do we do?" "We'll alert Elena and the staff," Dr. Ramirez replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to create a defensive plan and prepare to move Astra if necessary. We can't let them take her." The night grew darker, the air thick with anticipation as they rallied the sanctuary's staff and volunteers. Together, they devised a strategy, a plan that would ensure Astra's safety. Dr. Ramirez felt a sense of camaraderie blossom among them, a unified front against the looming threat. As they prepared for the worst, Dr. Ramirez couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude for the unlikely allies he had found: Leo, Elena, the volunteers. They had become a makeshift family, bound together by love and determination. In that moment, he understood that their fight transcended beyond Astra. It was a battle for the very essence of compassion and justice in a world that often overlooked the vulnerable. The hours passed slowly, the anticipation hanging heavy in the air. Dr. Ramirez felt the adrenaline coursing through him, a potent mix of fear and determination. He knew that they were facing an uphill battle, but he was resolute in his commitment to protect Astra. The sanctuary had transformed into a fortress, each member of their small army assigned tasks that played to their strengths. Elena coordinated efforts, ensuring that everyone remained focused and alert, while Leo, fueled by youthful enthusiasm, darted around, checking in on the animals and offering words of encouragement to the volunteers. As darkness enveloped the sanctuary, shadows danced among the trees, their shapes twisting and turning in the flickering light of lanterns. The serenity of the night was deceptive, masking the brewing storm just beyond the sanctuary's borders. Dr. Ramirez stationed himself near Astra's enclosure, his heart pounding as he kept a vigilant watch. With each rustle of leaves or distant sound of footsteps, his senses heightened, and he felt the weight of responsibility press down on him like a heavy shroud. "Do you think they'll come tonight?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper as he joined Dr. Ramirez at the fence. The innocence in the boy's eyes contrasted sharply with the gravity of their situation, and Dr. Ramirez sighed, knowing that he had to shield Leo from the full extent of the danger they faced. "I don't know, Leo, but we'll be ready for whatever happens," he replied, determination lacing his voice. "We have each other, and we have a plan. That's what matters." The boy nodded, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "I just want to make sure Astra is safe. She's my friend, and I won't let anyone hurt her." The fierce loyalty in Leo's declaration warmed Dr. Ramirez's heart, a reminder that hope could bloom even in the darkest of times. As the hours dragged on, a sense of unease settled over the sanctuary. The volunteers exchanged nervous glances, and whispers of worry flickered among them like the lantern flames. Dr. Ramirez knew he had to keep their spirits high, to remind them of why they were fighting. Remember, we're not just protecting Astra, he said, gathering everyone around him. We're standing up for what's right. We're showing the world that every life is valuable and worth fighting for. Their faces lit with determination, and a renewed sense of purpose surged through the group. They spent the next hour sharing stories of resilience and courage, reminding one another of the lives they had saved and the difference they had made. Laughter punctuated the air, cutting through the tension like a ray of light breaking through the clouds. But as the clock ticked closer to midnight, the atmosphere shifted. A low rumble of an engine approached, punctuated by the distant sound of voices. Dr. Ramirez's heart raced as he signaled for silence, his instincts on high alert. He turned to Leo and the others, his expression serious and focused. "Stay close to me. We need to be ready." The group fell silent, their breaths collectively held as they strained to hear the sounds of the approaching threat. The noise grew louder, the engine's growl echoing ominously through the sanctuary. Dr. Ramirez could feel the tension radiating from his companions, their trust in him palpable as they awaited his command. Then, without warning, the headlights of the vehicle pierced through the trees, illuminating the sanctuary's entrance. Dr. Ramirez's mind raced with strategies. He knew they had to act quickly. "Elena, we need to divert their attention. If they think we're unprepared, they'll move in faster. Leo, can you gather the volunteers and position them at the back of the sanctuary?" He instructed, his voice steady. Leo nodded, determination etched on his face as he dashed off to rally the others. Elena took charge of the front entrance, readying the remaining volunteers for whatever might come. Dr. Ramirez took a deep breath, his heart pounding in sync with the impending confrontation, and positioned himself at Astra's enclosure, ready to defend the precious life within. The vehicle came to a halt just outside the gate, and the sound of footsteps echoed ominously through the night. Dr. Ramirez's pulse quickened as shadowy figures emerged, their intentions cloaked in darkness. He could see the glint of flashlights scanning the area, searching for any sign of Astra. He felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him, fueled by the bond he had forged with the cub. "Stay hidden," he whispered to Astra, who looked up at him with wide, trusting eyes. "I won't let them take you." The figures approached, their voices low and menacing as they discussed their plans. Dr. Ramirez strained to catch snippets of their conversation, each word a knife twisting in his gut. They spoke of ownership, of the lucrative black market for exotic animals, and the lengths they were willing to go to secure their prize. Anger flared within him, igniting a fire that would not be extinguished. With a determined resolve, he stepped out from the shadows, his presence a barrier between Astra and the intruders. "You need to leave," he said, his voice firm, echoing with authority. The figures froze, momentarily taken aback by his sudden appearance. "Who do you think you are?" One of them sneered, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. "That cub doesn't belong to you. Hand it over, and we can make this easy for you." Dr. Ramirez squared his shoulders, summoning every ounce of courage within him. Astra is not an asset to be traded. She is a living being, deserving of protection and love. I won't let you take her. The tension crackled in the air, a standoff that felt like a clash of wills. The intruders exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their ranks. Dr. Ramirez could sense the hesitation, the flickering doubt, and he seized the moment to drive his point home. "Look around you," he urged, gesturing to the sanctuary that had become a haven for countless animals. "This place is a refuge for those who cannot defend themselves. We stand for compassion, for wildlife, and we will not back down in the face of greed." The leader of the group sneered, but Dr. Ramirez could see the cracks in his bravado. He pressed on, knowing that every word mattered. "If you take Astra, you will be complicit in a crime against nature. You will be part of a cycle of exploitation that only leads to suffering. Is that really what you want?" Silence hung in the air, the weight of his words settling over them. Dr. Ramirez held his ground, the bond he shared with Astra giving him strength. Time stretched painfully as he awaited their response, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, the leader scoffed, breaking the tension with a wave of his hand. "This is a waste of time. We'll find her. one way or another. With that, they turned to retreat, the sound of their footsteps fading into the night. Dr. Ramirez exhaled, the adrenaline draining from his body as the immediate threat receded. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, but the reality of their situation weighed heavily on his heart. This was just the beginning. They would not stop until they got what they wanted. As dawn broke, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, Dr. Ramirez gathered the staff and volunteers to discuss their next steps. They had survived the night, but he knew they needed a more robust plan to ensure Astra's safety. The sanctuary had to be fortified, and they needed to develop a strategy to protect not only Astra but all the animals in their care. Today, we regroup and strategize, he said, addressing the gathered crowd. We must work together to create a plan that will keep Astra and all our animals safe. We need to educate ourselves on the threats we face and how to combat them. Leo stood at the front of the group, his eyes wide with determination. I want to help. We can tell everyone about Astra, about what's happening. Maybe if more people know, they'll want to help us protect her. Dr. Ramirez smiled at Leo's enthusiasm, reminded of the boy's unwavering spirit. That's a wonderful idea, Leo. Awareness is one of our strongest tools. Let's organize a community event, invite the public, and share Astra's story. We need to rally support to show the world that she matters. The volunteers nodded, excitement brewing among them as they began brainstorming ideas. They divided into teams, each taking on specific tasks, from organizing the event to creating educational materials. Dr. Ramirez felt a renewed sense of hope as he watched them rally together, their shared passion fueling a collective fire. As they worked tirelessly, the sanctuary blossomed with energy, the air filled with laughter and purpose. Dr. Ramirez took a moment to step back and observe the camaraderie that had formed among them. It was a reminder that they were not just fighting for Astra alone, they were fighting for a greater cause, a movement that could inspire change. Days passed, filled with planning and preparations. The community event loomed on the horizon, and excitement buzzed through the sanctuary. Dr. Ramirez felt a sense of pride swell within him as he watched everyone come together, united by a common goal. They were crafting a narrative of hope, one that would resonate with others and draw them into their mission. The day of the event arrived, bright and sunny, with laughter and chatter filling the air. Families wandered through the sanctuary, marveling at the animals and learning about the importance of conservation. Dr. Ramirez stood at the front, sharing Astra's story, her struggles and triumphs, and the bond they had forged. As he spoke to the gathered crowd, he felt a deep connection with those around him. Their faces, a mix of curiosity and compassion, reflected the passion that had driven him to this point. The sanctuary buzzed with activity, and children laughed as they played near the enclosures, while adults engaged in meaningful conversations about wildlife protection. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of hope, believing that their message was being heard loud and clear. Today, we are not just here to celebrate Astra, he declared, his voice rising above the gentle hum of the crowd. We are here to advocate for all creatures who cannot speak for themselves. Each one of us has a role to play in protecting the wild, in standing against exploitation and greed. A chorus of applause erupted from the audience, and Dr. Ramirez smiled, feeling the warmth of their support. Among the crowd, he spotted Leo, who was weaving through the gathering, his infectious enthusiasm radiating as he shared Astra's story. The boy was in his element, speaking with visitors about the cub and encouraging them to sign petitions for wildlife protection. Watching him, Dr. Ramirez felt a swell of pride. Leo had become a beacon of hope, embodying the very spirit of their mission. As the day progressed, various speakers took the stage, sharing stories of animal rescues, the threats facing wildlife, and the importance of conservation efforts. Each narrative added to the tapestry of awareness they were weaving, and Dr. Ramirez couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with the people around him. It was a community united under a shared purpose, a collective heartbeat that pulsed with determination. But as the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant shades of orange and purple, a shadow loomed over their celebration. Dr. Ramirez received an urgent message from Elena, who had been monitoring the sanctuary's periphery. Dr. Ramirez, you need to come to the east side of the sanctuary. We spotted a vehicle parked near the tree line, and I think they're watching us. Dr. Ramirez's heart sank. The threats they had faced had become more than mere words. They were now a tangible reality. Everyone, I need your attention, he called out, his voice cutting through the festivities. The crowd hushed, their eyes turning to him, concern etched on their faces. There's been a potential breach of security. We need to ensure Astra's safety. I want everyone to stay close to the main building and keep an eye on the animals. His heart raced, adrenaline surging through him as he felt the weight of responsibility settle back onto his shoulders. Leo rushed to his side, his expression a mix of determination and fear. What do we do, Dr. Ramirez? We can't let them take Astra. Dr. Ramirez knelt down to meet Leo's gaze, his heart swelling with admiration for the boy's bravery. You're right, Leo. We won't let them take her. But we need to be smart about this. We have to keep Astra hidden and secure while we figure out what they're planning. Leo nodded, his small fists clenching with resolve. I'm ready to help. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of gratitude for the boy's unwavering spirit. I know you are. Let's get Astra into the secure area and then assess the situation. We'll need to move quickly. They rushed back to Astra's enclosure, where the cub was resting peacefully, unaware of the turmoil brewing outside. Dr. Ramirez gently coaxed her into a transport crate, ensuring she felt safe and secure. He could feel her warmth against his hands, the trust in her eyes anchoring him as they prepared to face the unknown. Once Astra was safely tucked away, Dr. Ramirez and Leo joined Elena and the other volunteers near the main building. They gathered in a huddle, their expressions serious as they strategized. We need to keep watch, Elena said, her voice steady. If they're planning to come in, we need to know how many of them there are and what they want. Dr. Ramirez nodded, the weight of leadership resting heavily on him. I want everyone to pair up and scan the perimeter. Keep your eyes peeled for anything suspicious. If you see the vehicle, take note of its license plate and stay hidden. We can't risk a confrontation unless absolutely necessary. As the volunteers dispersed into the shadows, Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of pride for their courage. Each of them was willing to stand up for what was right, to protect the innocent. He turned to Leo, who stood beside him with wide, determined eyes. Are you ready for this? Leo nodded fiercely. I won't let anything happen to Astra. With a deep breath, they moved strategically around the sanctuary, their senses heightened. The night was thick with tension, the air electric with anticipation. Dr. Ramirez led Leo toward a vantage point where they could observe the east side of the sanctuary without being seen. As they crouched behind a cluster of bushes, the distant sound of the engine from the vehicle reached their ears, sending a chill down Dr. Ramirez's spine. He glanced at Leo, whose expression was a mixture of awe and fear. Stay close to me, Dr. Ramirez whispered, his heart racing. They watched as two shadowy figures emerged from the vehicle, their movements deliberate and calculated. The men scanned the area, flashlights cutting through the darkness, searching for any sign of Astra. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of anger rise within him. They were here for the cub, and he would do everything in his power to protect her. They're looking for her, Leo whispered, his voice trembling. What do we do if they find her? Dr. Ramirez took a deep breath, steadying himself. We trust in our plan. We have to give the others time to regroup and prepare. If we act too soon, we could put Astra in danger. As the figures drew closer to the sanctuary, Dr. Ramirez's heart raced. He could feel the tension building, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Just then, a sudden rustling in the underbrush caught his attention. He turned his head sharply, and his breath caught in his throat. From the shadows, a third figure emerged, Elena, her expression fierce and determined. I've called for backup, she whispered urgently. We need to hold them off until help arrives. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of relief mixed with urgency. We need to create a distraction, he said, his mind racing with possibilities. If we can draw them away from Astra's location, it will buy us time. Elena nodded, her eyes alight with determination. I can set off some flares near the northern perimeter. It should draw their attention away. Do it, Dr. Ramirez urged, his heart pounding. Leo and I will create noise from this side to keep them occupied. As Elena slipped back into the shadows, Dr. Ramirez turned to Leo, the boy's wide eyes reflecting both fear and excitement. We need to make this count. Can you help me? Yes, Leo replied, his voice steady. What do you need me to do? Dr. Ramirez quickly outlined his plan. They would use their surroundings to create a cacophony, a series of loud noises that would echo through the sanctuary, drawing the intruder's attention away from Astra. They gathered sticks and rocks, readying themselves for the task ahead. As they prepared, Dr. Ramirez felt a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. This was a moment that defined their resolve, a moment that would test their courage and unity. On the count of 3, he said, his voice firm, we make as much noise as we can. 1, 2, 3. They began to strike the sticks against the ground, the sound echoing through the night. Leo joined in, his laughter mingling with the chaos as they created a ruckus. Their hearts raced with exhilaration, a mix of fear and determination driving them to protect Astra at all costs. In the distance, they could see the men turning, their flashlights flickering toward the noise. What was that? One of them shouted, annoyance creeping into his voice. Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of hope. Their distraction was working. He and Leo continued their clamor, determined to keep the intruders engaged long enough for Elena to execute her plan. Suddenly, a bright flash illuminated the night sky as Elena set off the flares, sending brilliant colors arching into the air. Over there, one of the men yelled, their focus shifting entirely as they raced toward the source of the light. Now, Dr. Ramirez urged, grabbing Leo's hand as they sprinted back toward Astra's secure area. They had to ensure the cub was safe, to keep her hidden from the chaos that was unfolding. As they reached the enclosure, Dr. Ramirez felt a sense of urgency wash over him. We need to make sure she's ready to be moved if necessary, he said, quickly assessing Astra's crate. The cub was still nestled inside, her eyes wide but trusting. Dr. Ramirez! Leo's voice broke through the tension. They're coming back. Dr. Ramirez's heart raced as he turned, knowing they had to act fast. We need to create a safe diversion. If they find us here, it will put Astra in danger. The sound of footsteps grew louder, the men returning from their chase. We have to move her now, he said, urgency lacing his voice. He quickly unlatched the crate, gently coaxing Astra out and into his arms. Hold on tight, he whispered, feeling the warmth of her body against him. Leo watched, eyes wide as he processed the unfolding events. What if they catch us? Dr. Ramirez met Leo's gaze, determination shining in his eyes. We trust in each other. We've come this far together, and we're not backing down now. With Astra securely cradled in his arms, Dr. Ramirez led Leo down a narrow path that wound through the sanctuary. They ducked behind bushes and trees, taking care to remain out of sight as they moved away from the enclosure. Every rustle of leaves and distant sound sent adrenaline coursing through their veins, but they pressed on, fueled by the urgency of the moment. Where are we going? Leo whispered, glancing up at Dr. Ramirez with a mix of fear and trust. To the storage shed, Dr. Ramirez replied, his mind racing with possibilities. We can hide there until we figure out our next move. It's got a secure door, and it's far enough from the main area that they might not think to look for us. As they reached the shed, Dr. Ramirez gently placed Astra down, making sure she felt safe and comfortable. The cub nuzzled against him, her soft purring a balm for his frayed nerves. Stay quiet, Astra, he murmured, brushing his fingers through her fur. They slipped inside, the dim light filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls. Leo closed the door quietly, his breath coming in short bursts as they settled into the shadows. What if they find us? He asked, anxiety creeping into his voice. Dr. Ramirez knelt beside him, meeting his gaze with a calmness he didn't quite feel. We have each other, remember? We'll think of something. Just stay alert. Minutes felt like hours as they waited, the sound of their own breathing echoing in the silence. Outside, the voices of the intruders grew louder, punctuated by the rustling of footsteps as they searched the sanctuary. Dr. Ramirez felt a tight knot in his stomach, the urgency of the situation weighing heavily on him. They were running out of time. Suddenly, a loud crash pierced the air, followed by an angry shout. "They must be hiding here somewhere. Check the shed." Panic surged within Dr. Ramirez, and he instinctively moved to shield Leo and Astra. "Stay low," he whispered, his heart racing. "We have to be ready." The door rattled as the intruders approached, their voices growing more menacing. Dr. Ramirez could hear the unmistakable sound of a flashlight beam sweeping across the area, illuminating the shadows. He held his breath, praying they wouldn't find them. With a sudden jerk, the door swung open, and the beam of light flooded into the shed. Dr. Ramirez's heart dropped as he met the gaze of one of the men, who squinted into the darkness. "I know you're in here. Come out with your hands up." Dr. Ramirez's mind raced, searching for a way out. "Leo, we have to distract them," he whispered urgently. The boy nodded, his face pale but resolute. "What can I do?" "On the count of 3, we'll make a break for it. You run to the back of the shed and make noise, and I'll draw their attention. We have to get Astra out of here safely." Leo took a deep breath, determination shining in his eyes. "Okay, I'm ready. 1, 2, 3. As Leo darted to the back, Dr. Ramirez stepped forward, positioning himself between the intruders and the cub. "You want us? Come and get us," he shouted, his voice echoing with defiance. The men lunged forward, their expressions twisted with anger as they focused on him. "Grab him," one of them shouted, and Dr. Ramirez felt a surge of adrenaline. He had to protect Astra at all costs. In the chaos, Leo began banging on the wall of the shed, the sound reverberating through the air. "Over here! Over here!" he yelled, his voice a beacon of bravery. The men turned their attention toward the noise, giving Dr. Ramirez the moment he needed. "Now, Astra!" he exclaimed, scooping up the cub once more. "Let's go!" With a swift motion, he bolted past the intruders, adrenaline propelling him forward as he sprinted out of the shed. Leo was right behind him, their feet pounding against the ground as they raced toward the sanctuary's perimeter. "Keep going," Dr. Ramirez urged, determination coursing through his veins. They needed to reach the forest line. Their only chance for safety lay beyond the sanctuary walls. But just as they reached the edge of the trees, a shout rang out behind them. "Stop! You can't escape!" Dr. Ramirez's heart pounded as he pushed himself harder, urging Leo to keep pace. "Don't look! Back! Just run!" They plunged into the woods, branches whipping against their faces as they navigated the dense underbrush. Dr. Ramirez could hear the men gaining ground, their footsteps crashing through the undergrowth. The sanctuary was a sanctuary no more. It had become a battleground. "Where do we go now?" Leo gasped, his breath coming in quick bursts. "Just ahead," Dr. Ramirez replied, spotting a small clearing up ahead. "We can find cover there." They burst into the clearing, and Dr. Ramirez quickly scanned their surroundings. The trees loomed overhead, casting long shadows as the moonlight filtered through the leaves. He knew they couldn't stay here for long. They needed a plan. "Leo, we have to find a way to alert the authorities," he said, his mind racing. "If we can get help, we can protect Astra and bring these men to justice." "But how?" Leo asked, glancing back toward the direction they had come. "They'll catch us." Dr. Ramirez took a deep breath, his heart racing with urgency. "We need to split up. I'll create a diversion while you find a way to call for help. Can you do that?" "Are you sure?" Leo's voice quivered, but determination shone through his fear. "I believe in you, Leo. You're braver than you know. Go to the road and flag down a car. Anyone who can help us." With a nod, Leo took off, his small figure disappearing into the shadows. Dr. Ramirez felt a swell of pride as he watched the boy go, knowing that they were both fighting for something greater than themselves. He turned back toward the path they had just taken, steeling himself for what was to come. The intruders would be searching for them, and he needed to buy Leo the time he needed. Taking a deep breath, Dr. Ramirez shouted into the night, "You'll never take her. Astra belongs in the wild, not in your hands." His voice reverberated through the trees, and moments later, the men emerged from the underbrush, their faces twisted with rage. "There he is! Get him!" One of them yelled, and Dr. Ramirez felt a rush of adrenaline as he turned to run in the opposite direction. He sprinted deeper into the woods, weaving through the trees, his heart pounding in rhythm with his feet. Behind him, he could hear the sound of heavy breathing and the crash of branches as the men pursued him, relentless in their pursuit. But Dr. Ramirez was fueled by a fierce determination. He would not let them take Astra. He would protect her with everything he had. As he ran, he spotted a narrow ravine up ahead, its steep sides shrouded in shadows. Without thinking, he dove into it, hiding among the rocks and foliage, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could hear the men approaching, their voices filled with frustration as they searched for him. "Where did he go?" One of them grumbled. "He couldn't have gotten far." Dr. Ramirez held his breath, his heart racing as he listened intently. The intruders were close, too close. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, and he knew he had to act quickly. As they moved past his hiding spot, he seized the opportunity. "Hey, over here!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the trees. The men turned at the sound, their focus shifting back in his direction. "Got him!" one of them yelled, and Dr. Ramirez bolted from his hiding place, sprinting further into the woods. He could hear the men chasing after him, their footsteps pounding against the ground. But he was not alone. In the distance, he spotted headlights cutting through the darkness. Leo had succeeded. He had flagged down a car, with renewed hope surging through him. Dr. Ramirez pushed himself harder, the thought of Astra's safety fueling his every step. "Leo," he shouted, praying the boy could hear him. "Get help! I'll hold them off!" He could see the car now, its engine running, and in that moment, he felt a surge of determination. He would protect Astra, protect the sanctuary, and protect the future they had fought so hard to build. As he neared the clearing where the car was parked, he turned to face the approaching men, standing his ground. "You'll have to get through me first," he yelled, summoning every ounce of courage within him. "Get him!" the leader shouted, and the men surged forward, their intentions clear. With a surge of adrenaline, Dr. Ramirez prepared to defend himself, but just then, the headlights of the car flooded the area, illuminating the scene. Leo's voice rang out. "Help! We need help!" The sudden appearance of the vehicle startled the men, and they exchanged worried glances. It was just the distraction Dr. Ramirez needed. "I'm not afraid of you," he shouted, his voice echoing with defiance. "You will not take